Thank you very much, Nate. Yes, keep a close eye on that. Now let's have a closer look at the economy. And the federal government says new data from the tax office shows its tax cuts and low income concessions have increased household incomes by around $7 billion in the past 6 months. For more, Treasurer Josh Reidenberg joins me now from Lorne in Victoria. Good morning to you. Really, Treasurer, lay it out for us.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. Looks great in Lorne. These concessions, essentially how much money is back in the back pockets of ordinary Australians, and how is this helping the economy?
Well, $7 billion has flowed through the tax cuts to the pockets of Australian families over the last 6 months, and more than $1 billion a month will be flowing over the next 9 months. Now, this is part of a broader suite of economic measures and tax cuts that is being provided by the Morrison government. As you know, on October the 6th, I delivered the budget, and in that budget there were incentives for businesses to immediately expense new acquisitions. There was a loss carryback measure which will help small businesses that have done it tough through COVID get to the other side, as well as the JobMaker hiring credit to get young people who have been unemployed into work. There was a package to support travel agents. We're bringing forward infrastructure spending. There's a whole range of economic support measures, some $250 billion in total, which will help the Australian economy recover from the biggest economic shock since the Great Depression.
I think 85% of the 1.3 million Australians who lost their job or reduced hours are back at work. But these figures are all based on changing situations. The border closures between states and the lockdowns in Brisbane and in parts of Sydney, how has that affected the economic recovery?
Well, I think this is a feature of the pandemic that we face. It is uncertain. We have this new strain. It's more infectious, and the Queensland government took a prudent course of action, which was a short, sharp lockdown in the Brisbane area. Now, obviously, we need to get the virus under control as quickly as possible, and that will determine the speed and the trajectory of our economic recovery. But as a nation, we've been remarkably successful on the health front. Yesterday we saw 13 cases in Australia. Globally, there were 750,000 cases. In the United States, nearly 250,000 cases. In the UK, 50,000 cases. So our ability to control and contain the virus, and I have to give a shout out to New South Wales. They have been world class, best in class when it comes to contact testing and tracing. Their ability to get on top of those new cases has enabled the overall economy to continue to function strongly. And you're right, 85% of those 1.3 million Australians who either lost their jobs or saw their working hours reduced to zero are now back at work. We've seen consumer and business confidence come back to its pre-COVID levels, and in the September quarter we saw GDP growth of 3.3%, which was the single quarterly largest quarterly increase since 1976. So there are some numbers there that should give Australians a cause for optimism and hope as we begin 2021.
Well, you mentioned New South Wales as standard there. New South Wales has been critical of other states for closing off borders too quickly. What are you saying to other states and territories about the borders, and have some states reacted too quickly?
Well, again, the states, like the federal government, needs to operate on the basis of the best medical advice available to it. And when it comes to border closures, the principles are very clear. They need to be considered action. It needs to be compassionate, but it also needs to be common sense. And obviously border closures have created a number of issues for travellers, for people living on those border towns. But we need to work through this new phase of the virus, and we need to obviously see cooperation and coordination between states, territories and the federal government, and that's where the National Cabinet plays a very important role. And when it got together last week under the leadership of Scott Morrison, it was able to agree on a series of new measures and new protections for the Australian community, and I think that's welcome.
JobKeeper ends in March, I believe. What support can those on JobKeeper hope after March?
Well, the first thing to say is how successful the JobKeeper program has been. It's been the largest single economic support program any Australian government has ever undertaken. $77 billion is already out the door, and at its peak it was supporting 3.6 million Australian workers and around 1 million Australian businesses. But we saw in the December quarter the number of Australians relying on JobKeeper fall dramatically. Some 2 million Australian workers graduated from JobKeeper, and there were 450,000 fewer businesses that were on JobKeeper in the month of October compared to the month of September. Now that is a function of the economic recovery getting underway. Now JobKeeper goes out to the end of March, and that is our intention to end the program at the end of March. But it's not the only support measure that the government's put in place. We've been talking about tax cuts, which is putting billions of dollars into the economy. There's the JobMaker hiring credit to get young people from the unemployment queues into work. There's the infrastructure spending that we've brought forward. There's the support for the tourism industry, for the aviation sector. There's the home builder program, which was extended for another 3 months. All of these programs add up to a very significant package of support to help Australia get through this crisis.
Final question from me, and it's not really an economic question, but it's about George Christensen, and he has been retweeting and sending out misinformation that has been used by Donald Trump previously. He is an LNP member. You are a leader in the Liberal Party. Will he be spoken to? Should he be spoken to, and what needs to be done about this kind of misinformation getting out through the Australian public from its politicians?
Well, look, George Christensen will make decisions that he is obviously accountable to his own electorate too, and he's a member of the coalition, and he's a good local member for his constituency. When it comes to those events in the US, the Prime Minister, I think, spoke for the whole country and indeed for the government when he made very clear our disgust with what happened in the capital, Washington DC. Just horrible, horrible images, and that attack on that beacon of democracy, the United States Congress. And as a great friend of the United States, Australia stands with them through this difficult time, and obviously we encourage and allow demonstrations, but they need to be peaceful. Peaceful demonstrations are the way, whether it's in the United States or here in Australia.
Josh Reidenberg, Treasurer, thank you so much for your time. It looks lovely there. I hope you're spending plenty of money at those small local businesses in Lorne.
Certainly, I'm giving them certainly my share of my household income, just like many other Victorian residents are doing. It's a great picture of tranquility here at the beaches Australians and Victorians are getting about their summer holidays. And all the best to your viewers as they go about theirs.
Thank you.
Picturesque there in Lorne, most certainly. And we do have some breaking news as well out of Victoria. 0 new locally found cases in Victoria recorded for today. There is 1 case, a new internationally acquired case in hotel quarantine, and that is from 18,660 test results which have been received as well. So just repeating that breaking news, 0 new locally acquired cases here in